Toyota, going off the beaten track to find solutions.
The Toyota Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race, round 4 of the Absa All-Pro Championship, has always been a race that stretched vehicles, crews and drivers to the limit and then beyond. The desert certainly takes no prisoners, and in the Botswana capital, Gaborone, the organisers had set up a route which traversed some of the most varied terrain the drivers and navs had experienced in years. It was a grueling but fair test. Duncan Foss and Ralph Pitchford had notched up 2 wins already in 08, but they still had a 6-point lead over the consistent forward pairing of Woolridge and Schultheimer, with Toyota's Grenier just a further 2 points back. And the manufacturer's race was also still wide open. Toyota had a 9-point lead over fellow Japanese giant Nissan, while Ford was 20 points in arrears. It shaped up to be a thrilling side contest, and it was. Up ahead for the teams was a 250k run to the first designated service point at Hatsala Cloudley, where there was a scheduled 15-minute decontrol, and then the ride home, which would skirt the central Kalahari Game Reserve. The deep and very heavy desert sand had drivers fighting forearm and hand cramp, while navigators had to hold on for dear life. With time slipping away, the 51-year-old Nissan stalwart Hannes Grobler knew that he needed to turn his season around, and the desert provided the perfect backdrop. He was going hell for leather. However, Grobler's unlucky season continued. This time, he and Moore had a 30-minute stop to repair a spring on the accelerator mechanism. Not ideal if you're trying to win a 4th championship. Taylor, in only his second major off-road race in the SP Toyota, had shown great improvement and had a superb drive right into 5th place with a delighted Robin Houghton right beside him. The Barkhuisens too showed good form, and that their best ever finish in the desert in the Bloemfontein-based Rubicon SP wasn't a fluke. Exactly the same could also be added behind the names of Jaco Swanepoel and Keith Solomon, who obviously love it when it gets really tough and really long, like 1000 k's worth of long. And as Cobus van Tonder and Rian Gwapa found out, the local transport can be cumbersome and slow to get moving sometimes. After a disappointing run in the cane fields of KwaZulu-Natal, the Ryobi Nissan with Henry and Mauricio Matten on board was back to its best and making the running in Class D. With the Rexonic lads, Labuskaghni and Gerber a good 18 minutes in arrears. At the halfway point of the season, the Class D battle was wide open. And after a fine 3rd place in the sands of Botswana, Duploy and Janse van Vuren would have fancied their chances too in their Toyota Hilux. In Class E, the very experienced Jannie Visser and Yorks Leroux in the Castrol Team Barberspong Toyota Hilux led the Toyota Challenge, with Leroux, the reigning co-drivers champion, making a strong statement. The Kalahari bush is very dense, and as a result, it's very penal. The sand is unforgiving, and to top that, the ambient temperature was rising steadily too. Throw in the massive distance, and it's clear why this event is always a true race of attrition. Some of the wider country roads are speed-friendly, but then one has to keep in mind that it's a long way to go, so you have to save the car. It was tough out there, so tough that less than 70% of the field saw the finish line of day 2 in one piece. A typically tough desert race in uncompromising conditions. No surprises after all those miles. It was Duncan Foss and standing Louis Weichelt in a flying Sasol Nissan Navara. A 3rd victory in 4 races, and this one too added another vital 25 points to an already impressive championship tally. Grobler stormed through the field to take 4th. In Class D, the Mattens took the win and big points in the national championship, while Visser and Leroux had a 20-minute gap over Van Breda and de Toey in Class E.
First 2 days we battled a little bit. I battled a bit in the time trial. Yesterday I battled. But we kept our heads together. We knew we were slightly off the pace yesterday, but I knew overnight we could do some improvements to the car, and I was confident that we could do well today, and we improved the car, and we had a really good day today.
At the halfway mark, and Foss with a slender but vital 16-point lead, The consistent four Dio were also keeping an eye on Cronje and another on Grobler. And the points battle in Class D only had the Raysonics team ahead by 8, with Visser and Leroux enjoying an 18-point margin over Peckham and Santoro. Very little breathing space anywhere. To the city in the sun and situated in a prehistoric crater surrounded by the impressive Pilansberg, Sun City's charms are plentiful. That's if you're on holiday or on a golf trip. But if you have to face 400 dusty, dry, tough and uncompromising kilometers, it's a different proposition. Mr. Grobler, Shorthammer and Cronje were chasing one Duncan Vos, the defending national champion and 3-time winner in the early season. Grobler and Young Moore in the Nissan got an 18-second prologue win over Cronje and Birken, while Forward's challenge was underpinned by its spectacular consistency. 4 races, 4 finishes, each one on the podium. The battle lines had been drawn. But for the Nissan team, it was sweet and sour. Championship log leader Duncan Vos had broken a prop shaft and limped home with a 90-minute backlog. For his teammate Grobler, it meant that it was time to let her fly, and he did. The Sasol Nissan Navaras were all flying, Tollefson and Quinn on a mission to win for the first time on African soil. Meanwhile, Vos, a 3-time victor already, was pulling out all the stops. He and Pitchford, back from overseas commitments, were up 32 places and climbing, while Ferguson and West were also in that select group of SP men who were improving with every outing, and they were getting to grips with a big Ford Ranger. The Barkhuisens confirmed their membership of the same club. Another top 10 finish for them in the dust, mud and grit of the Northwest Province. Toyota's only finish on one of the tougher races of the season was Visser and Baardhorst, who brought their charge home in 9th place, scoring points in the process. In the rest of the minor placings, overtaking was still executed within sight of the finish line to secure another handful of points. Not that the often narrow, dusty and scarred surfaces gave a lot of opportunity for that to happen. Weichelt and Els cemented their Class D win in the N1 4x4 Toyota, making the category battle as open as it was at the beginning of the season, and in the process getting their noses ahead of the Zermattens in the title chase. With the rest of the Class D protagonists relegated to the minor placings and looking on. Class E was also far from over, and Gewald van Breda and Johan de Tooy had a big night after clinching their first win at Sun City in the Potch Plastics Hilux. Ahead of Visser and Leroux, the championship pace setters from the word go. With the all-yellow Toyota of the brothers Hutting, Diedrich and Dani nabbing 3rd place ahead of some of the more fancy teams. But it was a wire-to-wire win for Grobler and Moore. They were in the zone after being under pressure. The burly man celebrated his 31st year in motorsport in typical fashion, hard and all out. Vos had an awesome drive from 53rd place all the way up to 5th. Weichelt and Els held off the Zermattens, and in Class E, Van Breda and de Tooy provided the big surprise.
It was unbelievable. It was nice to be back, nice to be in a winning streak. It wasn't easy. I think the biggest thing today was to keep out of trouble, miss all the rocks and whatever, as I said. We had a few heart-stopping moments. We had a car that was going into the stage and we nearly hit it in the side. And then 20 kilometers from the end, we had one of the specials that was sitting in a ditch, and we couldn't get through. So we stopped there for about just a minute or a little bit more. And yeah, we were worried that we didn't know how far the other guys were behind us. But at the end, it was John did a great job. It's a very good organized event, this, and the marking was very good. Yeah, and I think it was one of the best ones.
Vehicle and asset finance from Absa, overcoming.
The Dakar Rally is back. The world's toughest rally has a new home. 9,000 kilometers across the barren wastes of Argentina and Chile. The Dakar Rally starts the 2nd of January.